Hello, rollers. Happy 2025, everyone. Thank you for joining us once again in this bright new year. Hopefully your New Year's and holidays were calm and peaceful and good, and hopefully 2025 brings a better year than 2024. Maybe that's a high bar to clear, maybe it's a low one, but the bar will be cleared. Welcome back to another episode of Classin' Up the Joint. And this week, we are rejoined by our wonderful, amazing special guest, Meadow Lawson, talking about the updates to the Rangers, if you can call them updates. In some ways they are, in some ways they're not. You'll get to find out. Don't forget to follow Meadow on social medias, Howdy Love Darlin or Howdy Love Darlin GM on all the social medias. Check out ours at The Roll Report Cast. Join us over on Blue Sky. It's a way nicer time. And enjoy the episode. Hello, rollers. Hello, invisible audience. Welcome back once again to another episode of Classin' Up the Joint. This is the show where we ask people great questions, dumb questions, all the questions. And today, I am delighted to be rejoined by my fantastic guest. If you would like to give yourself the introduction, toot your own horn, as they say.
Oh, well, toot toot. Howdy, darling. I am Meadow, she, they pronouns. You can find me everywhere that matters on the internet at Howdy Love Darlin or Howdy Love Darlin GM. There is no G at the end of Darlin because I'm Southern as hell. And I am so happy to be back. We talked about a lot of things last time, so I'm excited to get more specific this time.
Yeah. And yes, I'm so excited. I didn't say the things. I am Colin. I am your debatably friendly GM and person here at the Roll Report, and I use they and he pronouns. And we are continuing our dive into the 2024 classes. And we're going to dig into what is, I know, everybody's utterly absolute favorite class of all time, Rangers.
It should be, but I get why it's not.
I do. Now, I am going to start. I'm going to say this because the last time you and I spoke, I told you I was going to play a Ranger, and
yes,
I have now played more than one Ranger.
Ooh.
I pulled out a Gloomstalker for a little one shot that we did here on the Roll Report. It was super fun. Love those things. And in a friend's campaign, they're running the Planescape game, so just kind of the out of the box. So for those that are not familiar, you basically get to create 3 characters that are different glitches in the universe, and you shift between them every time you die, or in our case, anytime someone misses a session or the GM cancels a session, we all rotate.
And that's called being resourceful.
It's pretty great. And I have a Drake Warden. And I am really enjoying having a little dragon friend that runs around and gets to do stuff.
Yes,
and I
indeed.
cannot wait for him to be large enough to ride into battle and then fly into battle. Big excitement.
Absolutely. I love Drake Wardens. There are a lot of subclasses in the 2014 5e rules. I don't know if we're just going to get 4 and have nothing but the 4, or if they're going to continue to expand and add the Drake Wardens and such.
I hope so.
I sincerely hope so.
Yeah.
From what I've seen so far, though, the subclasses to me are what I'm most excited about in terms of the changes to the Ranger subclass.
Yeah. I do. So I don't know if it will be official, but Sebastian Yue was also on the show recently, and Sebastian is working on subclasses Revivified, which I think it's coming from Hit Point Press, and they are trying to update for the new rules all of the subclasses that have been left behind so far. So if Wizards doesn't do it, someone else is going to, and we'll get a good Drake.
The homebrew warriors pulling it through again. They always work so hard for us.
Yeah. Well, I guess let's dig right into the thing, because
let's do it. I'm so excited.
So starting for me, it seemed like the quickest start is just as your base, what is happening? And I feel like that hasn't changed too much. I think, and maybe you said you said you'd done the research. How much of like the any of the hit die or proficiencies changed, if at all? I'm kind of looking at it myself this moment. It looks almost the same.
To me, I don't think any of that has really changed. I think it has moved to prioritize certain abilities and moves to favor your wisdom. Because that's kind of always been the thing for rangers. They are trackers, so perception and survival are really, important. But that has only been for those kind of like skill checks and not really utilized in the actual abilities. But I don't think the actual like core of it has changed very much.
I thought the saving throws had for like a split second, and then I realized I'm just like reading the wrong line of text. Yeah. Okay. So in one of the things that I've noticed is that some things in the 2024 rules, at least on D&D Beyond, and maybe in the book whenever I get it and look at it, are just like laid out a little more clearly and rewritten a little bit. And I think some of that is I'm seeing right here. But like, we see this box of core ranger traits, and I was looking at primary ability, which has dexterity and wisdom, and I'm going, yeah, that's a saving throw. Of course, it's fine. And it might make more sense, like that combination, but
yes, I guess it does. Since you'll be using a lot of, your crossbow, your bow and arrow. Dex is good for stealth and whatnot, which is very important to a ranger. I think what the biggest difference is would be coming into it as a player who's played a ranger before. So if you're starting back at like square one, now you have spells right off the bat. Now you don't ever need to worry about components to your spells because you can have a druidic focus. Now, not only do you have spells, you have more spells than you had before. So you have access to more things right off the bat. So my issue with ranger has always been that from the start you don't get much. So rangers are great when you're jumping into maybe a one shot to play it at like mid to high tier. Very
level
very
10
fun.
rangers are really fun.
Exactly. You can do so much when you're up there, but if you want to play a ranger and you're just getting in, you deserve to still have that level of fun. Like rogues get sneak attack, like bam. They get skills and expertise in character creation. Like there's no so I think having access to spells immediately is huge. And I think having your hunter's mark always prepared now is huge. It's always there for you to use. So I think that hunter's mark is kind of like a core pillar of what makes up rangers as a class, to be able to deal that extra damage because of your precision and your training and your ability to hunt. So bulking that up and giving you better access to it makes you feel more like buffed in combat.
And you're like starting from a point where you can feel pretty good about what you're doing.
Exactly. The fact that that's level 1 straight off, like you could do a little extra damage even if you roll, level 1 damage, then that's great to know and to have in your back pocket.
Well, so to continue there, like, the skills and weapon proficiencies and the starting equipment, all that seems the same. But there's this really nice feature of getting your spell casting immediately and immediately having a number of prepared spells and a druidic focus. And then so in the 2014 rules, you don't get your spell casting until second level.
Exactly.
So close, but you still have to deal with that full level of just like hoping that you're hitting people hard. You don't even get the fighting side. Okay. Wow. Getting ahead of myself.
So the first level features in 2014 are the favored enemy, which I think has stayed around. You choose a type of creature or two races of humanoid, i.e., humans and elves, as your favorite enemies, and you get advantage on survival checks to track them and intelligence checks to recall information. And then you learn a language, and this repeats at 6th and 14th. And then the Natural Explorer in 2014 rules, you are particularly familiar with one type of environment and good at traveling and gain some bonuses there, which I also feel like is one of the things that gets used the least as it is written.
Yes. And it has always made me it's always driven me crazy how you can spend time building this character who, let's say, just happens to be from an Arctic area, and your campaign immediately takes you from that Arctic area where you start down into the woods. So you have way less opportunity to make the best out of it, even though the flavor of the character tells you that you are adaptable and good at learning new environments. So you should be able to still have something that allows you to feel useful in that way instead of only where you grew up are you cool. Right? That's not fair.
And then not until way later in your levels, I think. At 6th and 10th, you will learn, but you will have to put in a lot of time with the character.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. It doesn't necessarily reflect the adaptability that seems to be a hallmark of how Rangers are personified and
which is crazy.
How they're pitched in the books. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. It seems like a lost opportunity. And so with my DM, what I would say is I was like, this is the thing that I'm annoyed about. And we talked about both kind of the variation that Tasha's Cauldron of Everything brought in, which I think kind of is what stuck around for the 2024 rules. And also the idea that, working with your DM, whenever you level up or maybe whenever you long rest, however you do it, you can, if you're using that favored terrain, Natural Explorer, then you can change the terrain more frequently. And then you're not stuck with a useless thing. You're like, oh, I'm an expert in Arctic, and our whole first half of our campaign is in a forest.
And for
bless
excuse
you.
me. Good so sorry. For a game that relies so heavily on its mechanics, Dungeons and Dragons has been woefully unmechanically utilizing Rangers. So it would be really interesting if when there are level ups, especially the level ups where you can choose to do ability score changes or take a feat, you could choose to instead change your favored terrain if you, again, have talked to your GM and know where you will be heading. It's not mitigating if you know where you're going. If you in game have been like, we're taking this boat down to this coastal region, you might want to have, the open seas as your favorite terrain for a bit.
Yeah.
And, instead of getting better at other things overall, getting very good at where you'll be is an interesting choice to have. And the fact that there's no mechanic to do, it doesn't make sense because D&D mechanizes everything. So the fact that there's not one for Rangers is crazy.
Yeah, it's a use case that really relies on communication between player and GM to, assuming you want to maximize that ability. You could play a ranger as a damage dealing beast if you build it in a certain way and really have nothing to do with that. But if you want to, it would be nice if there was a built-in way to do it and GMs didn't have to invent something like this.
Yeah. Again, like I said, homebrewers, they are carrying the entire team every day because there is so much room for nuance and there's so many things that you want to do that necessarily don't have a place already in D&D. But I think that's why this new edition, especially for Rangers, I can't speak for every class, but takes heavily from the 2014 rules and then kind of Frankensteins them together with the Tasha's Cauldron. Because that's what you had to do if you wanted to play an interesting ranger with the like 5th edition rules. So them just kind of taking the most used rules that people already had at their home tables and making it canon, I think is a good choice.
Yeah.
But I'm not convinced, especially for lower levels here, that it's brought rangers up to the level where some other classes are going to be. I don't think they're going to be the shit kicking class anymore, where people are just like, you know, kicking them when they're down, shitting on them for no reason. But I do think that they've like elevated it up to fun to play.
Yeah.
Instead of hard to choose whether or not to play, which is a lot of other classes for your go-to, just because of what you can do.
Yeah. There's some interesting things that I feel like they have done where, you know, as we looked at bards, we were like, wow, bards kind of got a massive power boost almost across the board. We were keeping a small joking tally of like, as we go through these class features, which do we prefer, the 2014 or the 2024? I think for bards, 2024 was just like, oh, all of these things seem like they've been improved. And now your 20th level feature is actually really cool and useful instead of garbage. It is gaining access to power word heal and kill all the time and being able to cast them on 2 creatures standing within 10 feet of each other instead of regain 1 bardic inspiration if you start combat with none. You know.
Yeah, like nobody wants that. You want to do something cool when you're up to cool levels.
Yeah, right? So go back to Rangers, like in 2024, as I'm looking at it, like they've moved this explorer thing to level 2 along with a fighting style. And at level 1, when you start, you'll get favored enemy, the name is the same, the thing is very different, and a weapon mastery.
Weapon masteries. I have to say 2024 really popped off with these rules. I love Rangers, but I main a rogue. So having a mastery where you can give yourself advantage on your next attack is but there's so many properties that are just really cool to have, work great for different classes, work great to further flavor how you fight. And I think that for Rangers in particular, and this is going to be very polarizing that I say this, but I'm going to say it with my whole chest because I'm right. I wouldn't even risk it if I was wrong. The 2024 Ranger rules have simply made Rangers the optimized multiclass class.
Wow.
You
hot
have
take.
to. It's a hot
here
take
for it. I am
but
here for it.
I promise you, it's correct. Because right now, it's either Bard or Rogue are best to multiclass with, because you can still get like your jack of all trades. You can still kind of spread your skills across. You can still support, but this lets you do those things right off the bat. So getting your spells early is huge. It's absolutely super huge. If you were to say multiclass and rogue, your weapon mastery could be Vex, so you can give yourself advantage and therefore sneak attack. And as a ranger, your stealth is already going to be super high. Your prioritized stats are going to be your dexterity and your wisdom. If you were to do it as a druid, if you were to multiclass as a druid, you have a druidic focus from level 1. You say you do the Fey Wanderer subclass, you can summon Fey immediately. So as soon as you take that subclass, you can use your spell casting focuses, which plays on, you're in the wild, don't you want to kind of balance the two? I think has been placed primarily not to be the class you want to play and like the class that people are fighting each other to be like, who's going to be the ranger at the table, like they do with like paladin or barbarian. What they're going to do is take levels in ranger and other things. And I don't think they're going to start with Ranger. I think it's going to be like, because if you start with a different class, you get cooler features. But as soon as you take even one level in Ranger now, you have that spell work. You can have Druidic Focus now immediately. So you don't have to worry about new spell components or anything like that.
I mean, I'm thinking for myself, just like the kind of thing I would build, and the saving throws for me when I multiclass depend a little bit on which one I want to start with. And like for a ranger, then you're going to start with strength and dexterity as your saving throws, which are frequently used. I don't know. I love starting as a rogue a lot, and then you get dexterity and intelligence, which, you know, and if you take it high enough, we'll add wisdom into there. But yeah, like to just a one level dip in ranger, you'll get 2 kinds of weapons with mastery properties. Immediately.
Spells.
And spells. And so Hunter's Mark also now you will begin cast twice without expending a spell slot, and increases as you level up, which
so if you look at it from the other way, instead of like being a ranger first, and instead of taking it as ranger just in one level, now gives you all these extra little goodies, no matter how far you may already be, it becomes way more desirable, I think.
Absolutely. And I mean, and I'm noting that by like the later stages of the game, by like level 13, you get 5 uses of Hunter's Mark without expending a spell slot. And it is, I mean, I think it's arguably the most used ranger spell currently, and probably will remain in this way. And I believe that the actual wording of it hasn't much changed. No, okay, you do an extra d6 of force damage, which is always nice.
It is now force damage. Yeah, I think that's the only thing that's changed. But even at level 13, that is the level, I believe, where you can't have your like concentration broken by damage on Hunter's Mark.
Wow. Oh wait, wow. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you get
that's incredible.
5 uses, and even if you get hit, that stays up every single thing. So I think that like the flavor is getting better. We are increasing the flavor. And I'm stoked about this class in particular, getting a little bit of a revamp.
Very much. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Jumping ahead and looking at that at 13th level, taking damage cannot break your concentration on Hunter's Mark. That's amazing. Because by 13th level, you might take a hit that would be far beyond your ability to make a constitution save and achieve your check. And instead you're like, nah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Hunter's Mark is still going on. Yeah.
Wow.
I will find you with my last breath. Which is what the vibe should be able to be if you want a ranger that does that. You know, like that's perfectly in line with what they created rangers to be. So I really like that a lot.
Yeah, very much. All right. I mean, continuing on then. So looking at second level, as you just progress up, it seems like basically the things you get at first and second level have kind of just been swapped between 2014 and 2024.
Yeah.
In 2014, first level is favorite enemy, natural explorer. Second level is fighting style and spell casting.
Yeah.
And that's, okay.
But that's also why I say I think it's being positioned to be the new multi-class base, because again, level 2, you are already getting expertise now, and you get to learn 2 more languages. Like that's setting you up the way that they set up rogues to be able to have kind of like skill expertise right across. And even though again, rogues get it at first level, rangers are getting spells first level, and then second are catching right up. So again, I think that kind of elevates it. And Deft Explorer, as I knew it, was from Tasha's and is a little different. This is now a little different to get Deft Explorer, Roving, and Tireless, and you don't get them all at level 2, I think.
I'm going back and forth. So I think they're similar. So Deft Explorer is the Tasha's feature, which replaces Natural Explorer, which, as we have said, is only fun if you work with your DM, I think.
Yes.
So the Tasha's version, Deft Explorer is like the whole thing, and then you have a first, sixth, and 10th level, and I think they're the same. First level is called Canny.
Okay.
You get expertise in one skill, and you can speak, read, and write 2 additional languages.
2 languages. Yeah. So that's the top part there. The
Yeah.
canny is all you get. Roving and tireless will be your 6th and 10th, I believe.
Right. And
which I think are both great.
Yeah. Well, it's what I'm again kind of jumping ahead and around as I'm looking between the two. It basically gives you many more cool base core ranger abilities without your subclass. Like the list of things you just get as a base ranger in 2014 is smaller and debatably less useful.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
Now, will I say there are some subclass changes that have made people angry, and rightfully so? Yes. But this is not one of them. I think that gaining an expertise and a skill and then also getting 2 languages is amazing. Depending on your species and your background, you can already have like 2 to 3 languages in your back pocket. So Deft Explorer could put you up to 5, which is incredible.
I think that reflects better the idea of the ranger wandering widely and knowing lots of people.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. It's
you
good
want to
flavor.
be able to make friends with everyone. You want to at least be able to say like, hey, can I sit at your fire to like any random person you come across?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If someone says the name of a poison in a different language, it's helpful to have a ranger who has shopped in that culture's marketplace before. And to have that reflected is awesome, especially at level 2. That's so early to introduce having that type of intellectual expertise. So awesome.
I love that.
I think it's awesome.
And I'm also going to call out the addition of Druidic Warrior as a fighting style you can choose. I think this is like a very well-suited thing for Rangers.
I agree.
That you learn 2 Druid cantrips and they count as Rangers. Yeah. But I think that would be a fun way to kind of up the magic game of your Ranger and give them a little more. I don't know if I want to say utility, but just like it's. All of the traditional fighting styles are super fun. I know archery is like a classic one, or ranged fighting, but I like this new thing.
I think it's important to have Druidic Warrior as a fighting style feat now that they're feats, because if you want to lean into the magic, that's the perfect way to go. Again, flavored very much like rogues, arcane tricksters, where once you start getting magic, you can only take from I think it is 2 school of magic, illusion and
enchantment for most of them.
And enchantment.
At specific levels you can do anything, but the bulk of an arcane trickster
exactly. So you gotta get the magic where you can and take it where you can find it. So even just getting 2 more cantrips could be super helpful, because now in the 2024 rules, you can change out your spells. So just grabbing 2 more cantrip slots is great to have.
Yeah, totally. Love that. Okay. Third level, we get subclasses. Which we love, and we get to. I am noticing that it looks like primeval awareness has either gone or been shifted. So in 2014,
it's gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say that I don't know that I love that, because it's a cool thing to do with your spell slot. So in 2014, you can use an action and expend a spell slot to learn whether any of the following types of creatures are present within 1 mile or 6 miles if you're in your favorite terrain, and 1 minute per spell level. So it doesn't have location or number, but I feel like it's just such a nice ranger thing to do, to walk into a forest and like meditate for a minute, and you're like, I can hear the sounds of all of these kinds of birds, and oh crap, that's the sound of an undead thing like way over there.
Yeah.
Maybe in that direction. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I've used it in the characters that I've played, but I like it. I like it as a feature, similar to Divine Sense for paladins.
Yeah.
But the range is so cool.
I definitely get where you're coming from on this. I do think that even though it is good for flavor, and usually for me, flavor is king, this is one of those spells that never gets used. It's something that you never, ever use, ever. And now that you get spells so early on, spells like Alarm, which work for like a very long way out, or even Speak with Animals super early on. Like you can start using those magical inclinations to have more RP moments to get the same information. So I feel like now you can do Speak with Animals or plants, and be able to ask, what have you seen pass by here? We're looking for this. And it kind of encourages more narrative role play than your character sitting down solo, doing nothing for a moment and then having the information needed. I think I am sad to see it go because it's flavor. But I also get why it's gone with the new changes.
I hear you. I see where you're coming from. I think I appreciate the moments that can come when you're just like, I know there's a dragon nearby, but I don't exactly know where. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, I wonder, as they designed it in 2014, I wonder if it would have been used more if you got a general direction. It specifies that it doesn't reveal creatures' location or number, but if you're like, okay, if I just get northwest of me is where I'm feeling that ping of a dragon, some draconic something. You don't know how far, but just like direction, like, you know what I mean? I think as I'm looking at it, the rules as they are written in 2014, it's just not like, they went a little too far in making it not overpowered.
Yeah.
And now it is under and not useful.
That is exactly the issue. For me, unfortunately, that is my overall issue with the Ranger update. I am excited for it because now it can be utilized in a different way. And I think that we're going to see a lot more Ranger multiclasses, which is so fun for me. As the rogue main, now I can finally like rogue Gloomstalker Ranger multiclass. Ooh. But I, we'll see where we go here, because they have taken away some of these things, getting into the subclasses and talking about Gloomstalkers. Now that I'm thinking about it, they used to be able to get an extra attack on their first round of any combat. They don't get their extra attack anymore. And if I know anything, if I know anything about D&D nerds, is that they would rather sit on a hot grill naked than give up an extra attack.
That sounds accurate.
What it is now, it's kind of been amended for Gloomstalkers now deal an extra amount of damage consistently. Like you can, I think it's up to either your proficiency bonus or your wisdom modifier. You can deal an extra amount, an extra die of damage.
Well, that's, I don't know if that's like actually that's not bad.
It's more consistent, right? So
I'm
instead
not enough of a math probability stats like just in my head to know if that would kind of average out.
Me either. But it feels better to know, for me, this is just for me because I'm not a math person. It feels better to know that 5 times in, let's say, a session long combat, let's say we're at the level where I can do this 5 times.
Hey, you roll decent stats. You might have a 20 wisdom like real early in the game.
Right.
You know?
Who's to say?
Yeah.
So let's say I'm in 5 times in a really rough combat that I can deal that extra damage. Especially if I have Gloomstalker, Ranger, Rogue, then, you know, yet another dice on top of that is really helpful and really good to know, rather than hoping I deal enough damage on my first turn.
And then never get that attack.
And then never get to do it again. So I like it, but there's a lot of people who love their extra attack who don't like giving that up.
As we're talking about, that seems like such a knee-jerk, don't take my toy away, when you're like, hey, but actually this other toy is better and it's going to last longer.
I promise you, bud, it's going to do more good in the long run. And it's like, but I don't get to hit twice in 6 seconds. It's like, that's true, but now you hit harder in your 6 seconds.
Every time.
Every time. You know, like I'm in favor of that, but I do think that this is where we are leaving Rangers. This is where we are saying this is like the blood O positive type. Like this can donate to everyone. It's not specialized. Because if they had specialized it instead of priming it to be multi-classable, they would have said you get extra attack and you can do an extra damage on your extra attack. So maybe that would have been the once or twice per long rest or proficiency bonus or whatever whatever have you. But what I feel like is the most fun part about D&D character building is going through and being like, how am I supposed to choose between all this cool stuff? It's all so cool. And with Rangers, I've always had like a pretty good idea of what I'm going to do. It's never been hard for me to choose. And I think if they had the gumption to take a chance and be risky and be like, let's overpower them and see where like we need to pull back, rather than let's give them a teaspoon more and see what we need to add. More is always better. Like I would rather be drowning under how much cool stuff they can do than trying to figure out how to like Frankenstein piece together other bits to make it cooler, which is what people had to do.
Yeah. And I'm always interested in like, can they swing that pendulum far enough? And I would be really interested what the core would look like if they'd gone, all right, here's the class that almost no one wants to play right now and gets pretty universally dumped on. And how can we bring it so far back to the other end that we have to say, oh no, everyone wants to play this and it's too overpowered because of what we have done. I want to know what that version of a Ranger looks like.
It's been 10 years. They wanted to release something. I think some of these are really great additions and changes. What I am not convinced of is that the pendulum didn't swing far enough for me. I think that it kind of did that stall out in the center when it could have, like, if everyone is dunking on one class, make it the most powerful one just to see what happens. Like, you have the ability and resources and longevity and name to gamble on things like this. And so what I'm looking at right now in terms of Ranger changes is not a gamble. It is a good, smart, tactical move. But I would have loved to see, I would have loved to see a big swing.
Hello, rollers. It is I, your friendly, debatably friendly GM and host, Colin, here to once again thank you for listening. It means so much to us that you join us on this ride, and we are so grateful for your continued listenership and support. Don't forget that you can follow us on many social media platforms at The Roll Report Cast. We are also all over the interwebs on Blue Sky now. It's super cool. And if you really love the work that we are doing and the people that we get to talk to and what we are bringing into the world, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/therollreport, where, in addition to helping the show keep going, if you give us as little as $1 a month, you can have exclusive Q&A sessions, Ask Me Anythings with all of our upcoming guests. You can submit your questions there, and only you will get to hear the answers. And just as a little tease, coming up later in January, we have the amazing Connie Chong coming back to talk about barbarians. We're going to have in February Brooke Whitney from Roll20, the community manager and all-around amazing person. If you want to know anything about Roll20 and being a community manager, all these things, head on over to Patreon, send us $1, and send us some questions. Brooke was amazing to talk to. Can't wait for you guys to hear that. We are also going to have the fantastic Sebastian Yue coming back to talk about wizards and the new rules for spellcasting, as well as new Humblewood games. Ooh, and you and only you will get to ask Sebastian questions through our Patreon. That's all for me. Back to the show.
So a thing that I'm wondering right now that I don't know, so they did do whole series of play tests of all of these as they were figuring these out and released chunks of rules at a time. And I'm really wondering if any time during that process, A, there was the overpowered ranger of our dreams, and B, there were rounds of feedback solicited each time. And I want to know the internal discussions around the ranger, because once again, like people that I've talked to recently are like, yeah, I still don't like it, still probably not going to play it. And presumably some of these people absolutely like play tested and offered feedback.
Yeah.
And so if the feedback once again was like, hey, you guys didn't do enough to rangers, and they were like, that's fine. Or what else happened? And I asked this as a question because I genuinely don't know, and I'm very curious.
Yeah.
How those discussions went.
I think, okay, so I am also very curious of how those discussions went, because you should have had me in the room, because I've been passionately defending Rangers since before they deserved it, because they've never really deserved it. And yet I keep defending them because truly they're just fun to play. And people don't think they're fun to play because of their abilities and like what you've given them. And then once you play them, you're like, actually, guess what I can do with this? And look what, like, you'll figure it out once you play them, but no one wants to give them that chance. And so I have for you today, Sharks, pitching 2 new Ranger subclasses. If you have 2 new Ranger subclasses and get rid of the 2 that no one ever plays, I think everything would be way better, way cooler. The one that I really want, and I think would revitalize a lot of enthusiasm in the genre of Ranger, is a like creature wrangler flavored like cowboy style. So lassoing beasts, riding beasts that aren't meant to be ridden, also having gunslinging abilities, things like that. Like that's a ranger.
Yeah. I'm into it.
Long rides, survival instinct. People would be frothing at the mouth to flavor a fantasy cowboy. So give the people what they want and stop being lame. Like I don't know what to tell you. Like
it's
begging.
Surprising how many people do not give the people what they want and then wonder why the people are like, the
crowd is going to keep going mild if you keep not giving them what they want. Like I want a gunslinging, lassoing, wrangling cowboy. Like I would love to be able to hog tie an owl bear with a flourish. Like give it a swashbuckling subclass basically, but like it's for rangers, because people love playing swashbuckling rogues and they are not optimized. They're just flavorful.
They're so fun to go. As a brief aside, they are so much fun to combine with like swords bards.
They are
real pirate flavor. Yeah, I mean, I would love this. The gunslinging cowboy ranger could have like net proficiency and advantage to like grapple something with a net.
Yes,
and then someone would actually use a net.
Yep, and someone would actually grapple if there was a specialty in it.
Apparently some of the grappling rules have changed in ways that someone was like, "I'm going to grapple more," and I have not looked into those core rules yet. So I
haven't gotten that deep into it as of yet. But that's fun. Yeah, they need a ranger that is all about getting their hands dirty. And I think the most modern visual and like flavor that we have for that are cowboys. So I'm not saying put a cowboy in D&D. I'm saying flavor a subclass with cowboy sensibilities to bring back some fun and brawling and good old down home rowdiness to rangers. I love the Gloomstalker for being like the dark shadow stalker, whisper, danger. But I think that the other classes lack that level of flavor. And that's why everyone who plays a ranger kind of gravitates towards Gloomstalker. It's got the most like pulling you in.
Yes. And I feel like the mechanics of it, I don't know about, but like the flavor of a swarm keeper can be really fun.
Yes.
I
do love the flavor of a
horde
swarm
of
keeper.
Fleas. Be like a weird little rat creature with a horde of fleas. Be an elf be a beekeeper. Be a vampire or a dampier with a swarm of mosquitoes would be hilarious.
I do personally adore swarm keepers because of the flavor. Yeah. Have I ever seen swarm keepers used effectively? No. But the flavor is immaculate. One of my players one time for a one shot was a swarm keeper ranger, and the swarm was a bunch of other people's kids. Like she was the family member who had to watch everyone's toddlers.
That's really funny.
For distractions, she would like send them to run through the feet and tug at the sleeves of someone trying to get to them from across the room. Really, and it was like the flavor is absolutely there. The mechanics I'm not super sure of, but because I do prefer flavor over mechanic, I would keep Swarm Keeper and get rid of Fey Wanderer so that the like creature wrangler could be in there. And so there is another ranger that I'd really like to bring to your table today, Sharks.
Yes. Let's lay it on us. Let's see if we'll invest.
Have you ever considered that rangers, especially in their subclasses, don't celebrate how much mental acuity it takes to track their prey?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
It's frequently a very logical and fact-based thing. You got to like focus and investigate. It
is. And yet, for some reason, dexterity is at the top of the list. I object, Your Honor, because I think that we should introduce a ranger subclass that is like a bounty hunter. So I'm thinking for bounty hunter rangers in particular, if not wisdom, then intelligence, and strength would be your two go-to. I'm thinking dog the bounty hunter style flavor. So like a guy who's at his computer all day long looking up like Facebook social media style where to find this person, and then has the strength to apprehend them. So I'm thinking about rangers in this sense as not like favored enemy being creatures coming out of the ground, but more of like rangers who spend all day looking for people and building those charismatic connections and trying to get information that will lead you somewhere. Because we have two of those in the rogue subclasses, and we only need one. We don't need two. We don't need mastermind and inquisitive. That's excessive. What we need is someone who can be smart, but then can actually put the muscle behind it. And I think a bounty hunter subclass for Rangers would radicalize the climate in this economy, Your Honor. We need more bounties and more hunties. We're not getting enough of either.
This is what we need. I love that. I mean, as also someone who adores rogues all the time, I will say, give me all of the rogue subclasses all the time. And just the difference with how you can flavor inquisitive versus mastermind distinguishes them somewhat. But you're right. They're very similar. And Rangers could use some intelligence-based love for sure.
Because they are intelligent. They are intelligent. They are smart. They put their knowledge to work all the time. That's part of who they are. And I think that there are ways and things to track that are not just like, creatures in the night or undead things. They can just be like a dirty politician. They don't have to be fae. They don't have to be undead. Like they can just be this guy who's gonna get what's coming to him, and I'm gonna figure out how to do that. I think having either not charisma based, but one who it would make sense. Has high deception and persuasion and things like that. But then once things pop off, can still accurately handle themselves, which I think is a lot easier now that you get spells and weapons mastery so early. But with these new rules, I think we need to get new subclasses because the subclasses that we had holding over from 2014 are there because they were trying to give some oomph to what they had based on the Rangers that they had. Now that we have basically new Rangers, this is nearly an overhaul of the class. I think we need new subclasses as well.
Let's keep looking at that overhaul so we can dive to subclasses. Moving on. So ability score improvement is we keep going on level 4. This is one other thing that I noticed that I am actually a big fan of. So 2014, you get 5 of them. Is that right? 4th, 8th, 12th, 16th, and 19th level ability scores. And now everyone across the board at 19th level gets the epic boon. So the Rangers get their ability scores at 4, 8, 12, and 16.
Indeed.
And to just, again, like I think the across the board, everyone gets an epic boon at 19 was a really good move.
I agree.
I think it because by that level, an extra ability score improvement that fighters and Rangers and rogues get is, I would argue, kind of less impactful than some of the really cool epic boons that are both already included in the books, and I'm sure people will build a million more of them.
Yeah.
And the flavor of it, you're like, well, I took an extra feat versus you're like, I am 19th level, I am practically a god, and I just got this amazing boon,
I am Thor from the Avengers.
So I'm curious. So they recommend one for each. They recommend the boon of dimensional travel for Rangers.
Oh, yeah, I saw that boon. Yes, indeed.
You increase 1 ability score of your choice to a maximum of 30. And blink steps immediately after you take the attack action or
cast
the magic
spell.
action. Okay, so it's the magic action, casting a spell using a magical item or using a feature. Anyway, but immediately after you do that, you can teleport 30 feet, just every time.
Love.
That's
a good boon.
It's a great boon. But again, it's just like, at 19, you should be able to do stuff like that, like shoot 2 arrows and just blip across the battlefield, or activate your magic thing and then keep going.
That's the kind of stuff I want to see, and that's the kind of combat that I think Wizards of the Coast has been trying to achieve. I don't know if this will speed up combat, but I know that this is kind of feeding the hunger for wanting to do more superhuman stuff in combat as you keep doing combat.
Yeah, I really like it. Okay. Extra attack is still there at 5th level. Did I misunderstand the thing about that you were saying about Gloomstalker? Is just that extra attack on the first round of combat?
Yes, that's
Right.
what you get for
Okay,
Gloomstalker. Yeah, that's gone now.
But you will get the thing. Okay, we love extra attack.
We love extra attack.
We do. So another thing that has left, I'm going to call out. So level 6, you get roving, which is basically the same thing from Tasha's. Your speed increases by 10, and you have a climb and a swim speed. And we have lost the 2014 feature of Landstride. Moving through non-magical terrain costs you no extra. Difficult terrain costs you no extra movement, and you can pass through non-magical plants without being slowed or taking damage. And you have saving throws against things, magical plants, or things like the Entangle spell. So that's just gone.
Yeah, they say that they're
that?
like replacing that by the expertise feature. And I don't think it's enough of a replacement to warrant. While I do love roving because, and this, I might be mistaken, but I think in Tasha's, it was like your walking speed and stuff increased by like 5 feet, but this is increasing by 10. So you're getting a lot more bang for your buck on that. But yes. I don't see how getting expertise in one little bitty skill is the same as being able to walk through trees.
This is mechanically, I feel almost neutral, but for the flavor of it, I think it's a loss. We've gone from this cool Landstride thing to at level 9, it's two expertise things, but still same, different. The idea that the ranger who has been out in the woods and like, or wherever your wilderness background might be, urban background, like that you learn to sort of negotiate through plants and pass through them. And the advantage on, I don't know how often enemies, depending on your DM, will throw an entangle spell or thing at you, but like having advantage on it, it all makes sense with how the rangers are talked about.
And I will always take an expertise again as a rogue main, but like I don't feel like this warranted taking away Landstride, which I have always thought is one more of a cornerstone of getting up there once you're getting into your higher levels of play. So I mourn the loss of Landstride, truly. I wish they would have changed it to a feat. Because your fighting styles are now feats. So like you could have still chosen to take it, especially if that's the type of campaign you're playing where you're in the forest a lot and you're like, hey, I'm going to use this a lot. And you want to pick it up, you should be able to. But getting just rid of it, cruel, hurts.
I mean, it's one of the things like other people that I have spoken to over the last year or so I can imagine the response of like, well, then make the feat, and lean into our homebrew heroes and how much they do for us. And,
exactly.
Yes. And it'd be nice if they just had kept the thing that we like.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
The things that we didn't like.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
They don't have a great track record for that.
The history of it is this like whole other fascinating thing to me that I'm curious about, of like prior to acquisition by Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast, like were the people and the business behind D&D more responsive and receptive to their fans? Because as we've seen in the last year or so, now Wizards responds basically when they put their foot in their mouth and fans are like, hey, if you mess with our open gaming license, we're all going to leave. And then they go, oh, sorry, capitalism. It's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how it used to be in the halcyon days of far off and whatnot. I don't know. Anyway, I am noticing we've also lost hide in plain sight, which is another, I don't know how often people ever use it, but such a cool ranger feature of like, I'm going to do the Rambo thing where I flatten myself against mud and you can't see me until I open my eyes and suddenly there's eyes looking out of a mud face.
I am
Sure, it
glad
takes
this
a
is
minute, but
gone.
like, yeah, okay. Why are you glad this is gone?
I'm glad this is gone because I agree with you. I think this is classic Ranger flavor. This is like Old Bay to a seafood boil. However, I think this became extinctable when the style of DMing changed. There is no longer a huge niche in the at-home style of gaming where you have an opportunity to take a minute to set up and camouflage yourself. Usually there are surprise rounds, ambushes. You'll do a perception check and hear something. And so then you'll scout ahead. But there's not a lot of sending one party member in to camouflage and overhear and listen to an enemy party alone. And if you're trying to do that in combat, well, there goes the whole combat. It's a minute. It takes a minute.
It's a minute, and you every time you move or take an action or reaction, you have to.
Anytime you do anything, you have to do it again. I think because now that you get spells so early, and by this point, you will certainly have taken Pass Without a Trace if you are a stealthier ranger.
Yeah.
There's no point. There's no point to doing that.
Yes, I think my objections to it disappearing are diminishing as we say more about it. I think for flavor it's so useful, but as I'm reading it, it's not a useful ability.
Which is why they should have just changed it. Like they should have edited this so that the flavor was still there, but that it didn't take a minute and you could move or breathe if you want to.
And the thing is, I could see it being really useful if as it is written in 2014, if you are trying to ambush someone. It hasn't necessarily come up in a game that I have been running so far, but like I could absolutely see, you're trying to lay a trap for the wagon that your target is in as they're going through a thing, and you're like, cool, we know it's going to be here later this morning. When I wake up, I'm going to spend a minute camouflaging myself in place and just like sit and hide. But also, I think you could just, as a DM, I'd say now I'm like, cool. Roll your stealth check with advantage because you have the time to fully do this thing and camouflage yourself. Or something someone told me about recently of just like, well, I'll take a 10. I will spend enough time that we can assume I rolled a 10 on that ability.
Yeah.
So usually in like lock picking and like that sort of stuff. But I could see I could see this flavor text of Hide in Plain Sight being more fun to mess around with than the way it is actually written.
I think, and I don't want to misquote it, so I'm going to look it up real quick. But I think, so I would like for Rangers, as we're getting up there in terms of level and looking at what they've changed and what they can do. We're in level 10. So around this level, I think it's level 11. Rogues get reliable talent. So you can choose anything lower than a 10 to just be a 10. I think that to keep the flavor of things like this without having to attempt to figure out how to rewrite them, it would have been great to have a ranger style reliable talent in things like survival and stealth and like ranger
I love that
specific. So you could be like, hey, I'm going to just cover my body in leaves and mud and lean back. I'm going to take a 10 and I'll add my 11 here. So that's a 21. You can just.
And it makes sense because the rogues get reliable talent across the board, and then like glamour bards get a thing, I think earlier at like level 8 or 9.
Jack of all trades, is that right?
Jack of all trades is you have proficiency bonus across the board for skills. Glamour
true.
bards specifically get reliable talent on like charisma checks. Like, and it's a little earlier at like it might even be at like level 7. Any persuasion, intimidation, or deception that you roll like 9 or below becomes a 10. And so I think where I'm going, I like that this as flavor for your class. Your character class is very good at a thing, and it shouldn't be possible at a certain point for them to utterly fail at the thing they're really good at.
Yeah.
You know, as I'm saying this out loud, I wish it was like Epic Boon, like everyone across the board at 11th level, like your 1 or 2 skill specific things for that class get a reliable talent feature. I think, wow. Now I'm like, do I just want to do that in my own game? Maybe I will. We'll see. I like this idea.
I do think it's a good idea. And I think for expanding it to all classes would be amazing because you're getting up there. Like, this is not a level 3. This is not a level 6. Like, we're up here at level 10 at this point. There should be at least one skill that you can choose to always take a 10 on.
Absolutely.
And you can choose because, like, I think that gives you the flavor. But for Rangers, a lot of the things that they've straight up removed to replace with something else, I think could have been saved with just a little bit of reworking. So getting the big chop here is like, they're taking everything from us. But I think in general, it's for the better.
Yeah. I mean, they're giving us a couple things. So that has been replaced by the formerly building in tireless from Tasha's. So at level 10 in the new rules, you can give yourself a number of temporary hit points equal to a D8 plus your wisdom modifier, equal a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, and regain it when you take a long rest. And a short rest will decrease your exhaustion level. I like these things. I like these
things as well.
Yeah. These are the same. These is like basically copied. It is now a quote magic action, not just an action, but it's wisdom modifier, and it used to be proficiency bonus.
Proficiency bonus, yeah. So like they've tweaked it a little, but I have to stand by my earlier statement that they are priming Rangers to be the new multi-classing hub because like you're giving them second wind at this point.
Well, I mean, at this point, you're saying I'm taking a full half of my levels in Ranger to get there. Not the worst idea. I could see a 10-10 mix being interesting, or like a 10. I mean, you could do like a complete horrible monstrosity of like 10 Ranger and like, what would I do? A few Rogue and a few Bard. That could be interesting.
I think.
I get it. Now I'm like, do I want to put some time and effort into thinking of it, like crafting this? Maybe I will.
10 Ranger. 2 Barbarian for Rage and Reckless and the other one, and 1 in Rogue for Sneak Attack.
Yeah. I like. You'd lose Hunter's Mark while you're raging because you can't. I think you still can't concentrate. But I like this. I'm intrigued by this build.
I would take away Barbarian and replace it with Fighter. So that you could still get that martial extra attack after a couple of levels. So the extra attacks, sneak attacks from the Rogue, and all of these little Ranger bits.
Oh, these would be fun. Okay. Wow. Okay. We talked about Relentless Hunter a little bit. We're back there at level 13. Damage cannot break concentration on Hunter's Mark. Nice little bonus for Rangers there. And then 14th level. Interesting. Okay. This is a shift. In 2014, you get Vanish. You can use the hide action as a bonus action, similar to Rogues. and you cannot be tracked by non-magical means unless you choose to leave a trail. And so that is different.
Yes, it is. We now have
Okay.
Nature's Veil.
Yeah. I like the flavor of this text that you invoke spirits of nature to magically hide yourself. And as a bonus action, you give yourself the invisible condition until the end of your next turn.
It's basically the same thing. It's now, again, just prioritized to be equal to your wisdom modifier rather than your proficiency bonus.
Yeah.
And then like the flavor of the text is new, so that it's flavored more to be rangerified.
Yeah. I'm like popping up the invisible condition. And if I am reading this right, it looks like using Nature's Veil to give yourself this condition until the end of your next turn, your attacks will not break this invisibility.
Well, that's nice.
Someone has asked Jeremy Crawford about this on the internet, and I might try to look it up because there's the rules as written as they pop up, both the legacy definition and the 2024 definition. It does not specifically have the effects of like the invisibility spell, where if you attack or cast a spell, you break it. It just says attack rolls against you have disadvantage and your attack rolls have advantage unless a creature can somehow see you. So that's
interesting.
If I'm reading the way I'm reading that right now, that is an extremely, extremely useful thing.
Yeah, especially since it's a bonus action.
You could start a turn, do that, make your attacks, move, and then you still have a whole nother round of combat that you are invisible until that ends.
Yep.
So you could conceivably get, 4 shots or 2 spells or like a number of things while you are invisible before it ends. I like that.
I do like that.
I like that a lot. It's appropriately at like 14th level, you should be able to do things like that.
Yeah, I think they only changed this because the Vanish was using Hide as a bonus action.
Yes. And this is just invisibility.
Yeah, because you have access to those spells so early on, you know how to do this. It makes sense that you would just do it magically rather than hide behind a rock. So I'm for this. I am for this change.
Yeah, I'm for this. I am also for this level 17 feature of advantage on attack rolls against creatures marked by Hunter's Mark.
My Gloomstalker Rogue is going to be so unstoppable.
So happy. I like this. It is there. It seems like they're really leaning into Hunter's Mark, just like being the thing that if you were a ranger and you want to do damage, like this is how you do it.
So here's why they failed at this.
Okay.
Because they had every opportunity to do this right. And they only needed to do one thing to make it right. And I know I sound like I'm crazy because I keep talking about rogues. But if you had just scaled Hunter's Mark damage, like, like sneak attack damage, you're good. The fact that they
would be
didn't,
so much happier about it.
It is insane.
I can understand the argument for not when you are adding features in, like your concentration can't be broken by damage and you'll get advantage. But the number of levels in between those things, I feel like it should at least, okay, what is it? It's just a flat D6 across the board.
Yep.
Higher level spell slots make your concentration last longer if you're trying to track people. Okay, cool. I feel like it should, it should maybe... I'm going to throw out, like, I don't know, at level 7, it goes up to 2d6, and at like 14 or 15, it goes up to 3. And I think it should stop there because you're getting this concentration boost and you're getting advantage shortly after it would be that level. But I agree, it's by 17th level, you should be capable.
You should be doing more than 1d6 of anything. At 17th level, that's crazy. So I think leveling it up, even if it just went up to 3d6, would make so much more sense and would make balancing encounters a little easier. Because if you have an entire group of people doing 50, 75, 148 points of damage in one turn, and the hunter's mark that they are making the cornerstone of your character is only dealing 1d6 extra is insane.
You might have a really nice bow at that point. I think there's some like mildly better ones in the works, but like, say you just have like a +3 longbow. You just have like a really nice bow at that point. You're going to do a D8 plus your dexterity and then a D6 from Hunter's Mark on any given shot.
Come on. Like, be fucking serious. I mean, I would be so upset. I would personally be so upset.
To be fair, once rogues use their sneak attack, that's it for their turn. Like, this is like the multi-classing with Swordsbard. You're like, well, if I hit once and I get the sneak attack from my swashbuckler or whatever, then the next one is just a little D8 from a rapier, a little D8 or D6 from a short sword.
Yeah.
After I've dumped my like 10d6 of sneak attack on the first one.
Yeah. That hefty one is nice to have.
That's true.
But
yeah,
it's better than just doing one. I think that it's agree. It's begging. Ranger builds right now in the 2024 rules are begging to be utilized, and it won't let you easily utilize them. There are so many ways to do it and do it well. And my brain is going crazy with little combos and like how to add different species to make it naturally more this or that. But you shouldn't have to make it exciting to play. So I think they missed out on some opportunities here.
I do. I'm going to mention one thing since we were talking specifically about this, jumping ahead, which now I feel like this is like the fucking 2014 Bard capstone. The 20th level Ranger feature in the new rules, the damage die of your Hunter's Mark is a woohoo D10 instead of a D6. That is your 20th level feature.
That's not.
What's the point? Take a 1 level dip into rogue or fighter or something at that point, and you'll just be so much happy. It annoys me in the same way. Like, I railed against the Bard capstone of 2014, where, like I said, superior inspiration. You get 1 bardic inspo die back if you have none, and you roll initiative. Like, how is that the 20th level end of your journey?
I feel like if this is how they're going to end it, if you're going to end on a D10 instead of a D6, which I don't think should be the case, I think you should have the option to go all the way up to a D12 because you're just adding it to your die. I think that instead of being like, okay, do 2d6, do 3d6, do 4d6, then up it. If you're going to have their highest level be just a bigger die to add on to their Hunter's Mark, then you should be getting a bigger die all the way up to it. And we should end at 1d12 instead of 1d6. It should have doubled by the time you were at the end of your journey.
I feel like I almost prefer the 2014. So, okay, focusing on this for a moment, we'll jump back to 18 and jump into some subclasses, hopefully. So in 2014, it's called the same thing. They are both called Foe Slayer. But in 2014, once per turn, you can add your wisdom modifier to the attack roll or the damage roll of an attack against your favored enemy. Okay. And you can choose before. Okay. It's more limited than I thought as I read the actual words, but I'd almost rather that it's just you add your wisdom modifier to the damage of an attack once per turn than woohoo, my Hunter's Mark die goes up a little bit.
Yeah, I think I would rather have it be like you can choose to add it at any time. It's up to you. Each turn, you can be like, this one. I'm going to put it on my attack to make it hit. And I think just going up in die is not enough.
No.
Sorry.
I like the kind of the versatility of the 2014. Like it can do the attack roll or the damage roll. Like that.
I prefer that, honestly.
Nice. Yeah,
I do prefer it. Because I don't feel like it's a big level 20 ending to just, I guess, pull the bow back further. Like get like the arrow to sink in deeper. Like that's not good enough.
Yeah, it is. We've kind of once again got this like, man, a lot of stuff up to like level 18 or 19 is pretty cool. And then you just really shot yourself in the foot on that last one. That arrow is just like through your foot, pinning it to the floor.
Yeah. Maybe they should have saved the epic boons for level 20. There's just a lot going on.
Yeah. I'm wondering how many of these things I'm going to be annoyed at what they've done with level 20 versus other things. Yeah. Okay, and last but not least, at level 18, Feral Senses, which is the same title in both, but honestly, I think the 2014 one is just kind of confusingly worded, and it makes much more sense that it's just now, no, you just get 30 feet of blind sight.
Yeah, it's just the wording change again. I think this is just a better way to say it.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with this change. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah. I do. I mean, you know, there's something kind of fun about the 2014 wording in its like sort of convoluted, weird nature. And there's just like, you just are aware of the location of invisible people within 30 feet as long as you're not blind or deaf. And you're like, yeah, that's blind sight.
Yeah.
So I'm here for it. I wish it didn't take you to 18th level, but blind sight is pretty cool.
There is no reason that should be your 18th level get.
No.
I think Precise Hunter of just like having advantage on any creature that you mark with your cornerstone spell could be higher for other ones of these that are higher on the list to be lower.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't disagree at all. That's honestly like maybe more of a 20th level thing than the damage die increase. I don't know. So I feel on the fence. I feel like this is a very modest improvement to the base class.
Not a big swing. The swing is not big enough for me. I think that there was a lot that they could have done that would have had like me being like, okay, Rangers, finally. And now I'm like, okay, Rangers, something new to learn.
it's like a swing and a weak grounder on the third base side for those of us that grew up with baseball. Yeah. Like So I don't know. But setting that aside for a moment, and just kind of vaguely eye on the clock, like let's I want to offer the suggestion of like, let's look at Gloomstalker specifically as one that we are both kind of fans of and see what has changed there. And then if there are like other specific ones, we can lightly tap on those.
Absolutely. Let's jump into Gloomstalker.
Tell me about the new one. It sounds like you have an opinion.
Well, I know that extra attacks are few and far between in Dungeons and Dragons, and those that have access to them consider that a privilege. And to have that taken away when no one was complaining about Gloomstalkers, first of all, Rangers have a lot of issues about being liked. The Gloomstalker subclass is not one of them. So to have one of the best things about Gloomstalkers taken away in favor of having it hit harder more consistently was a big blow. I am the type of thrill chaser at the table where I understand that it's more fun to roll a d20 with the possibility that you'll crit and get to do a lot of damage rather than see a resource depleting over time to hit a little harder. So I get which is better for me in the long term, but this was the only other subclass of anything that got that extra attack. That was a coveted thing for this specific ranger, and we don't get that anymore.
Well, and you would have 2 full levels to take advantage of that before you get the just extra attack feature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no point. Don't take that away from me. Just give me my extra attack as a Gloomstalker.
Well, I mean, replacing it with a 2d6 of psychic damage once per turn, but equal to your wisdom modifier. I guess I see where they're coming from. I
like it.
Yeah.
No one was asking for it.
Yes. This is very true. Very true.
So I do like dealing the psychic damage. I also like that now you can frighten as you're approaching. The whole thing about Gloomstalkers is that they are edgy, they are dark, they are scary. And I think they get lumped in a lot with like edgelord rogue hoodie wearing piercing people, which I don't mind. I play the rogues, so sure. I don't mind being lumped in with a Gloomstalker ranger, but they're very different. There's one who has like seen the horrors and is the thing that goes bump in the night, and rogues are just like little shits, so it's different. So I'm glad that they actually have an option to frighten an enemy, because again, not only is that great flavor, but that's one of my favorite conditions to have for NPCs, because it's great combat wise. Like mechanically it's strong and it's narratively fun. So I do like the Dread Ambusher. That's always been there, but it's a little different now.
I'm gonna again just say the organization of it. Just this is probably gonna be a theme for as I keep doing these. Like the way they separate out the 3 features of Dread Ambusher into Ambusher's Leap, speed increase, Dreadful Strike, the 2d6 damage, and initiative bonus, versus in 2014, it's kind of 2-sentence paragraphs of text, not articulated in this way of like, there are 3 things that you get with this feature.
Yeah.
So I do like that there are more organizational structural changes that I think make things easier to see what's going on.
Yeah, I will give that to the update overall. I think that's been its goal, and I think it's achieved that very well in organizing a mass of information really well.
Yeah. And as I'm looking at this, it also so that's the big changes to Dread Ambusher, but then your Umbral Sight, the extra dark vision, and being invisible in darkness to anyone that uses dark vision stay the same, which that is just one of my favorite things about Gloomstalkers.
Okay, so this is, I think, to me, this is what happens when you lean heavily into flavoring a subclass. And that is why my 2 options are so heavily flavored, because I think that's what draws you to it. You're like, oh, I can make this however I want to be. And it's like, yes, but that's true of anything. So even if the core flavor is strong, you can still make your character whatever you want it to be. This just makes it more interesting. So being invisible in the dark is one of the coolest things in the world. Because everyone will say they have dark vision. To say, that doesn't matter. you
still can't see me.
That's awesome.
I have realized recently that the 2014 rules about dark vision are I definitely apply them wrong. I'll say that. There's a lot more about like dimness and low light and like in total darkness you still actually can't see. You need some light source to, and I have just been like, not doing that.
But the way they worded it is weird, being like you can see as well in low light as in dim light if there is light. And I'm like, okay, hold on, but what can I see? What do I see? So I get that. That makes sense.
And
I don't mind the Gloomstalker changes. I get why people are grumbling about it.
So what else shifted? Iron Mind at level 7 is the same. You gain wisdom save throw proficiency or intelligence or charisma if you already have it.
I think that's it. I mean, now that you get that psychic damage, I think that goes up at a higher level.
Yeah. So level 11 is Stalker's Fury. What do we got? Actually, that's kind of different. That's significantly different. 2014 says Stalker's Flurry. At 11th level, you can turn a miss into another strike. Once per turn, if you miss with a weapon attack, you can make another weapon attack as part of the same action. So if you miss, you just get to try again once per turn.
What level is that
at? That is 11 in 2014. And so in 2024, it is at 11. The psychic damage goes up. Your dreadful strike now goes up to 2d8.
Okay.
You lost that extra attack, but now you get 2d8s of psychic once per turn. And when you use that feature, you can do one of the following additional effects. Either you make an attack with the same weapon against a different creature within 5 feet and within range. Okay, so if you hit someone, you just get to immediately hit someone next. Or what you were talking about, the mass fear, the target you hit and each creature within 10 feet must make a wisdom save against your spell DC, and on a fail, they are frightened until the start of your next turn.
Which I love.
That's very different.
Yeah. I love the ability to be able to strike fear into the heart of someone.
I like this change a lot, actually.
As do I.
Yeah. Being able to try another attack if you miss is cool, but being able to cause fear and hit someone within 5 feet of your target and bump up the damage and again, your dreadful strike is just once per turn. It's not that first round only anymore. So I think that really boosted what you can do. You got to get to level 11 to get there, but you'd have a pretty beastly damage output ranger at that point.
Yeah.
I
think they upped the flavor and power of Gloomstalker, which was already the most flavorful and powerful of the ranger subclasses. And I think some of the other classes suffered a bit for that.
I like this last update too. As we keep it. So 15th level for both is Shadowy Dodge. In 2014, you can use your reaction to impose disadvantage on an attack roll against you. That's the thing. And the addition in 2024, you can do the same thing. When a creature makes an attack roll, you can use your reaction to impose disadvantage. And then whether it hits or misses, you can teleport 30 feet.
Love that. I love being able to go 30 feet, especially if you do eventually get that extra boon and you've got that on you.
Oh, wow.
Boop, 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 boop,
all over
boop.
the field. Oh, yeah. That's fun. It's you've gotten, what is it, far stepping without any need for spell slots. Oh, love that. Okay.
Basically, Gloomstalker is still going to be the most fun ranger to play.
Yeah, for sure.
And this could have been solved if they had just asked me a couple questions, but they didn't. They didn't come to me directly, and I don't know why that is.
I mean, hey, Wizards, if you're listening, go talk to Meadow next time you want to have a ranger that isn't universally derided.
Yeah.
Near
or
universally.
a rogue that's actually diverse.
Yeah.
We get all the cool subclasses, and now we're getting like the lamest ones in the world. So we don't need any more of those.
Oh my God. Wait, quick. I'm taking a quick look ahead. Oh, boo. Yeah. They didn't. So Inquisitive and Mastermind haven't been updated.
Nope.
Nor has Scout, which is, I love Scouts. They're super fun. All right, whatever. As we continue this series, I'll get to dive into a more.
Fair. Yeah.
I will provide updates of my strong opinions. Well, wow. I feel like, yeah, I'm sticking with this. Like the base class has just gotten like a little nice tiny improvement when they could have swung for the fences, and they could have really taken this opportunity to make them a class that people loved. I agree that they've made it into a very interesting multi-class. Just one or two levels in it can give you a host of interesting features that might mesh really well with a different class that you use as a base. And I mourn for the loss of I didn't even know Rangers in like 2 or 3.5 like really beastly, and they were like, oh, we have to make these terrible.
So at one point I hear they were super buffed up. I don't know if that was like the 1.5 or what. But at some point they could do a lot of things like dual weapon wielding and like had some cool familiar stuff going on. And something changed along the way where they just kept nerfing them. They just kept going downhill. And I don't think that we're continuing to go downhill. I think 5e was a stable place to start. I think this is a great step forward. And I hope that whatever edition is next in the future takes into account what Rangers are actually capable of and decides to push those limits.
Yeah, I agree. And, like we said, this is why we love our homebrews. This is why we are always thrilled when someone puts out a whole new... someone with Ranger love is going to put out just a whole new version of the class or subclasses that will fix or ameliorate like some of the ridiculous garbage that has been dumped on Rangers.
Yes, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed that gets balanced out real soon.
On that super hapful note, hapful. Wow, English speak well, good. On that happy note for the future, Meadow, thank you so much for joining me again. What do you got coming up? What's exciting? Where can people find you perhaps on the interwebs?
Oh my goodness. I have a lot of fun things coming up. Like I said before, you can find me at Howdy Love Darlin or Howdy Love Darlin GM on all social media fronts. On Fridays through November and December, you can find me over at Somebody's Heroes, being a Soul Knife rogue. On Tuesdays, or every other Tuesdays, you can find me at Crits and Chaos as an Air Genasi cleric. I think is what we're going with. We're going with cleric. On alternating Wednesday and Sundays, you can find me at Records of the Realms for a Glitter Hearts inspired Code Lyoko campaign.
Cool.
And on the Wednesdays around that, you can find me at a Good Society Bridgerton inspired campaign over at Girls Run These Worlds. So I will be very busy for the rest of the year, and you can find me all over the place.
So exciting.
Anytime you want to talk about anything D&D, especially Rangers and Rogues, I will be here. I always love talking to you and chatting to you. It's so much fun. So thank you for having me.
I mean, right back at you. Check out all these games. We'll have links to all of the things in the show notes, and we'll continue diving into all these classes and see how much of improvements we can make. Like we've said so far, bards, big improvement. Druids, not so much. Rangers, we are sad. We mourn. We mourn for our Rangers, but we press on and persevere nonetheless. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure. What a delight. And until next time, I don't know, keep rolling with Rangers, y'all. Bye.
Thank you all so much for joining and listening, and can't wait to bring you Barbarians, Rage, Emotions, and the fantastic Connie Chong coming at you in just 2 short weeks. And remember, last chance to remember for this episode, that you can support us on Patreon for just $1 a month and ask questions of all of our guests, and only you, our delightful friends on Patreon, will find the answers. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.